So, I was lucky enough, as you can probably guess from the background, to get, and of course the video itself, to get into 2XKL's Alpha Lab 2 over the weekend. I played a lot of matches. I played in training mode in particular, perhaps too many hours, to the point where my fingers and knuckles were starting to hurt a lot. I got very obsessed very quickly, as it happened since Alpha Lab 1, and to finally be able to scratch the itch was not the experience I was going to give up anytime soon. However, as a lot of the general discourse probably indicates, 2XKL's Alpha Lab 2 is not by far a perfect release. It is alpha. It's not even the beta yet. They did implement a whole bunch of new systems, so we were not expected to be perfect. Which means that this video is mostly a list of a wish list, rather, of things that I would like to see Riot implement into the game before its actual release this summer. When that summer release actually is, they haven't told us yet. I would imagine there's going to be a follow-up post either Monday or Tuesday, or as late as Wednesday, as they follow up with their findings from Alpha Lab 2. However, without further ado, let's actually get into what I want them to implement. This is not an order of priority except for the very last one, which is probably the most important one. But for the first four, it's just like in the order of relevance. Number one, just expanded tutorials and trials, especially for the game's universal mechanics such as parry, tag knockback, get up options, and few systems. They've done a lot to naturalize the controls, a problem I highlighted back in Alpha 1, but it's still convincing to call 2XKL a particularly intuitive game, and there are certain nuances and interactions that I'd rather combo trial my way through than to watch a YouTube tutorial on. And the current system to the tutorial, unfortunately, is a lot like League's. It's very, very lightweight, shall we call it. Following up on that, I want specifically partnered and user-made practice trials. And I feel that this is especially critical for the game's identity as a two-player fighting game. And it's absolutely critical for them to implement support structures to further and heighten that identity as well. Like, being able to design, look up, and directly share user-made trials is also just a necessary part of the team play experience, giving teammates, especially giving friends, a way to fine-tune their strategy, fine-tune their coordination, that they otherwise wouldn't get simply by mashing buttons randomly and hoping that your partner's timing is right. Number three, this is probably more important to be honest, a functional lobby. Like, yeah, as I'm sure a lot of you that I have been following the game have seen, the lobby, especially on Sunday for Alpha Lab 2, was especially broken. Now, I have heard, I believe it was a Rufomonger interview with the devs, that they are planning to implement cross-server queue, or cross-lobby queue, which is very, very necessary for one, just to keep the search time for games to be minimal. But quite frankly, like, it's still a broken mess at the moment. Like, I had to try more than 5 times on Sunday just to enter a 2-person casual queue, a 2-person lobby. And the situation was even worse once I actually got to level 3 and started to play ranked games. Where the game outright remade the lobby because I was alone in there for so long. It's also just like, especially if the ranked queue, the ranked lobby rather, forces you to still just play people within that lobby, the skill skew, especially early on, is going to be really terrible. Now, again, cross-lobby matchmaking is intended, but also, again, that's actually not guaranteed to be an improvement if you can't make it into the lobby in the first place. I was having all day today having difficulties with. Speaking of ranked lobby in particular, I would actually prefer if the lobby for ranked in particular was only cosmetic. You show up, you have your avatar wander around, you get to show off your, especially any ranked or tournament-related apparels or like particle effect to show off to other players, but the actual implementation of ranked queue can be done right away from the start screen within like 2 button presses or even less, or that the lobby itself is just cosmetic. You go in there, you go to a console, and you get into a match no matter which lobby they actually are, as long as they are of the right like relative rank compared to you. Because right now, at the tail end of Guilty Gear Strive's like 4th year, I think it was, we have seen that the Strive style, the Arc System Works style lobby is an abysmal failure in terms of like, the actual user experience. Is it cute? Yes. Is it aesthetic? Especially Riot's is actually pretty damn aesthetic. I really actually enjoy watching people's games over their shoulders by simply standing next to consoles. But is it actual functional ranked experience? Fuck no. If it's going to be anything like Strive, they should seriously reconsider the fact that Strive is outright remaking their lobbies, their rank queue, to be a traditional system. Quite frankly, though, a lot of this basically boils down to just do it like Street Fighter 6, because Capcom is, quite fortunately for a lot of long-time fighting game players, leading the way in what the ranked and queuing up experience should be. Number 5 is the most important complaint, though, or the most important part of my wish list. I want them to de-radicalize the defense in this game. It's perhaps my biggest piece of criticism about Alpha 2, and the central case to be made in this video. It kind of feels like the design teams overemphasized avoidance of pain points and muddied the waters on the fun parts of 2XKO in the process. Yes. Compared to Alpha 1, smaller combos and more player agency was heavily needed, especially in the first Alpha, where most games were spent watching RA dunk on you for a solid 15 seconds for about like an eighth or a quarter of your health bar. But now that the game's gone to the opposite extreme, where the reward for offense are badly marginalized, and the incentives for playing defense is leading to stale outcomes and frequent timeouts. Very frequent timeouts, by the way. Now, this is despite the fact that 2XKO runs on a 120-second match window as opposed to everybody else's 99, which carries some really alarming implications about the design as is. Unintuitively, longer matches should actually produce more aggressive games, more opportunities to claw back an advantage and gain a life lead, while decreasing the odds of you successfully riding a minor HP margin to the finish line through purely defensive play. But like between the snappy roll-throughs and rare hard knockdowns into Oki setups, you can burn through an awful lot of the clock playing keep away while trying to punish an opponent for doing so often leaves you vulnerable to reprisals and wasted meter. I don't necessarily think that this is going to require a massive change to the game as is to balance out, but I do wish they let the new systems they installed to bake a little bit longer. The limited attack mechanic, for instance, is obviously intended as a counterweight to the heightened defenses. More damage, more meter, and hard knockdown all access all read on paper as something that gives you a massive edge as a reward for aggression. But there are two things, both minor and major, that are working against how they've implemented in Alpha Lab 2. First, it's just not really well implemented at all at this time. It's not, at least visually, right? It's not explained particularly well in the current tutorials. The read of it is kind of poor, with only like a red text pop-up to even show that it's happened. And it doesn't tell you which one either. And also requires you to take combo routes that may not necessarily be what a character or a pair of characters finds reasonable to execute. And rather than tying them to wall slash and knockdowns, I personally find it more intuitive if they were locked into specific categories of combo enders, even like the S1, S2 metered enders, just to make the new system feel more integral to the game's overall identity. But that's actually the minor level stuff. Can it be improved in implementation? Absolutely. Can be a lot more clear. That's like adding certain colors to knockdowns or like changing the color of the text box, whatever. That's not actually that important compared to the fact that the biggest issue is that it's a reward for combos, not a reward for aggression. Given the way that the game's currently balanced and how its systems have been implemented, the rewarded buffs are easier to gain as a result of counteractions. A sweeping 2H launcher to off the end of a block string, off an anti-air response to jump in, or out of a low abare as per normal defensive gameplay. The immediate nature of the rewards for playing strong defense are also just doubles down on the incentives to do so as well. Whereas implementing limit attack rewards as debuffs will help push gameplay incentives in a more aggressive direction. For instance, limit attack damage as a risk-like system from Guilty Gear Strive rewards pressure plays to heightens the risk of blocking, while limit attack meter rigged to award subsequent attacks and forward dashes within a small period of time forces riskier scramble situations to fully benefit from the buff, as opposed to hanging back and playing marginal advantages. The only outcome that doesn't necessarily benefit from like heightened incentives engineering is limited attack knockdowns, which is just the traditional Oki advantage that aggressive players should be gunning for anyhow. I think in that we basically have a case study for like the critical considerations that implementing interactive systems to a fighting game design needs to fully consider. And these are considerations that even trip well-established franchises, much less Riot's very first ever foray into the genre, and they often actually trip up very commonly on this. I'm sort of the opinion that a lot of Alpha 2's overemphasis on defense is a reactionary response to the current state of fighting games in general, where Street Fighter 6's drive system, Tekken 8's heavily maligned heat and general reports of Season 2, and Guilty Gear Strive's monstrous base damage and wild assaults are basically producing situations where it feels like less like you've outplayed an opponent, and more like you've won a coin toss. The feel of an outplay is not inherent to the first order initial contact layer of a fighting game's interactions. It is the conclusion of a narrative of events and unspoken communications between the participating players, culminating in a decisive moment only made possible through the exchange of intentions and deceptions prior to that point. The problem with Drive and Heat is that the designers think we just want to skip to the good part, forgetting that it's only good because everything that built up to it. And the problem with 2XKO is currently that the climax is piddly compared to the effort it took to get there in the first place. Now, I do not believe this to be insurmountable problems for Riot's designers, just so long as they actively recognize it as a problem. It's just basically fine-tuning the incentive system and the overall reward system, not to like make it so that it plays like Street Fighter or Guilty Gear Strive, but so that while you're playing 2XKO, you feel like you're being rewarded for playing 2XKO well, and that playing defensively is not the only way to play 2XKO well. Again, I don't think they need to radically re-engineer the game systems or anything, but I do think that Alpha Lab 2 needs to bake in aggressive awards just a bit more, just like a sprinkling on top, so that the bite into it actually like feels pleasant. And either way, I am still very much looking forward to the open beta. Hopefully it'll be open beta. If it's a closed beta, I'm going to be a little upset. But if it is, I still hope I get it. So until then, until next time, until they tell us when to expect to play this game again, I guess we just have to wait for them to give another update. Follow me on TikTok, Blue Sky, and Twitter, and of course on Twitch and on this YouTube channel. Press that follow button or subscribe button, and I'll see you next time.